Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carbage, your host, and with me today is none other than Mr. Sports Blitzpod himself, Brandon No Way. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing really good, Mark. How about you?
I am having such a great time, but, you know, living down here in Florida, sometimes it gets a little warm, a little muggy and all that, and I think, man, I sometimes wish I was up north. I visited folks in Canada once before, and I didn't think I'd ever be able to again, but our friends up in Toronto, they've got some things going on up there.
Yeah, they've had a really big past week and a half. The CFL started up, that there was that. The Canadiens made the Cup final, and I can't think of anything else. Can you?
No, not at all. But I sure am glad to see those Blue Jays were able to finally get back home. I was talking with our buddy Brent Carty from the Carty Show the other day. I was really happy to hear a lot that's happening with the Blue Jays, and it's an exciting time. So I don't even know where to begin with all this, Brandon. I mean, you look at this team. What? The bulk of this season's been spent down here in the States for their home games. You figure they started out looking at palm trees down in Dunedin, Florida, and then they moved up toward, Buffalo, New York, and Salem Field for a few weeks. Or finally, the gates were open in Toronto and said, "Hey, boys, come on back home. We'd love to have you here." So they came back in with some COVID guidelines, but it's great to have them back in Toronto. And, man, you can tell the fans love it.
Yeah, and, I mean, I'm sure the snowbirds down here love seeing the Blue Jays a little bit more, but I don't think the Canadians up north didn't like it so much. And a fun fact from Keegan Matheson on Twitter, well, not such a fun fact, but just a little fact. When the Blue Jays took the field at Rogers Center on July 30th, it would have been 670 days since Major League Baseball was played in Toronto. The last Toronto starter was Clay Buchholz.
Wow.
And can you guess who they played?
Whom?
They played the Rays in front of 49,000 fans in an 8-3 win for the Blue Jays.
49,000 fans and the Blue Jays beat the Rays. I love it, man. I like the 49,000 fans to start off. Wow. I'm hungry. I'm sure they're hungry up there, but I was surprised to hear that, I was curious to see what they were going to do as far as having fans. This time is only 15,000, but they said they sounded like 50,000. Let's try this again. They said they had 15,000 due to the COVID protocols, but they sounded like 50,000. But that's a welcome return from the last time they were there 670 days ago to play the Rays. Wow. They probably thought they'd see the Expos before they saw the Toronto Blue Jays come back up.
Or the X-Rays, whatever they're called.
The X-Rays. I call them the Nexpos when I was talking with Brent Carty the other day. Oh, brother. So, think about it. Like I said, 670 days. They wound up having their spring training center being their home base, and that had to be difficult. I remember seeing some of Zach Hanfel was out there. They didn't have anybody coming in as far as guests, but he was out there in the parking lot trying to catch balls. So people are determined to participate with the Blue Jays, and now they can personally at their own home field at Rogers Center.
Yeah, it was felt kind of like how sometimes, recently I can think of outside of the Raptors playing down here at Amalie Arena, how when sometimes NFL teams are renovating their stadiums or they're getting new ones. Like when the Bears, about 20 years ago, actually the year that the Bucks won their first Super Bowl, they didn't play in Chicago. They were played in Champaign on the campus of University of Illinois. And the Vikings a couple years ago were playing on the campus of the University of Minnesota on their campus stadium. So that's kind of what it was like, but I think it's a little bit different when you're in a completely different country.
I would think so. And, I love to go up to Rogers Center. I haven't done it yet. But, we've got a dome stadium here in Tampa, which is interesting, the Trop. But I love the whole idea of the Rogers Center. They're able to open that roof up and ventilate, if you will. But the return to a home stadium was important. And let's hear how Charlie Montoyo, the manager of the Blue Jays, what he had to say when they returned.
Don't like showing his emotions. I'm always sitting down and relax. And but I just couldn't help it because I was just so happy to be back, and I'm all in, man. I just care so much about the Blue Jays, about the fans, about this nation, about winning here.
Wow, that's a bit of an emotional statement from Charlie, but not surprising for him or for the team. I mean, this is their home. It's basically saying, not to as if they had to go off and do service somewhere for 2 years before they could come back. And I'm sure that's probably what it felt like for many of those players.
Yeah, I'm sure they got like a little bit homesick, not being able to actually play in your home for almost 2 years at this point.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, had to affect your performance and, just like an anxiety in you.
Well, and you think about it, Brandon, a couple of these players, Toronto Blue Jays, had never, ever, ever played in Rogers Center. Now, did you get to who they are on that list?
Off the top of my head, Ryu, he hasn't pitched there. George Springer hasn't been there, at least as a Blue Jay. Trevor Semien, right. He hasn't been there as a Blue Jay. And am I forgetting anybody else?
No, those are the ones that first came out as well. But there may be others. Those are the ones I always
Berrios.
think. Who? Say again?
Even though Berrios, that was his first time there, but, that was also his first game as a Blue Jay. So a little bit of an asteriskness to that one.
Yeah, we'll talk about Berrios a little later on too. But yeah, thank you, because the most obvious one I neglected. Oh gosh, so those are the new not the new Blue Jays, but the park Rogers Center is new to them. And then you think of the people. While this means a lot to all those players, it probably meant a lot more even to two of them who are natives of Canada, and that's Mr. Vladdy Jr. and pitcher Jordan Romano. So this has to be a very special moment for them as well.
Yeah, Romano, he was asked about it. Yeah, he was asked about it, and he said, "My whole family, my aunt and my grandma, they're all going to make it out today. I went to a few games in 15 and 16 just as a fan, and the atmosphere was amazing. I'm just hoping we can get back to that."
I was looking up at his birthplace. He actually grew up, but minutes away from Rogers Center. So he's a veritable hometown boy for the Jays.
Yeah, pretty much just across town. He's basically the Kevin Cash or Mike Zunino of the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and it's neat, looking back in your past and being able to go to the park with family and enjoy those games, and now be somebody who's on the mound out there representing the Toronto Blue Jays. So very happy for him and all the players.
And what about the fans, too? Imagine the excitement they were getting as well, because they can finally go see their team, which has a ton of potential.
I was watching a lot of it on TV the other day, and the excitement I saw with those people in the crowd, and as people were filing into the stadium, I saw people holding up a sign saying, "Welcome to Canada, George." and, and all that. Let's see. I think there may be a sampling here. We have a few of the comments of the fans.
Yeah, and these come from cbc.ca, and this comes from a Blue Jays fan named Mike Jackman. He said, quote, "I'm going to be the first one in there. I've waited a year and a half for this, and I can't wait. I don't think I slept all night." Ryan Borky? I can't pronounce that name. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but I believe it's Baraki. He said it'd be nice once again to play in front of the team's fans. And he said, "We just never had a home crowd. In Florida, we faced the Red Sox or the Yankees, and Buffalo, same thing. We're getting booed and stuff at our own place sometimes."
Yeah, we know how that goes here in Tampa. But wow, it's been crazy. I mean, they've had to make some real changes, because of COVID. And now that they're allowing people in there, I mean, some of the things are real obvious. Like they do mobile ticketing. They're not going to be handing off cash to anybody. All that's going to be done with mobile. I know some parks have already done that. Let's see. I know that. Before you get in, they're allowing you to get there 90 minutes before the game, but they have very interesting seating there as well. They've got seatings where they sell them in standard seating in some parts of the stadium, and they do pods for others. And I don't think there's necessarily a requirement to select one or the other. Each fan will undergo symptom screening prior to entry. That's probably checking the temperatures. And we've also got, another room. Another rule is fans aged 2 and older are required to always wear face coverings while on Rogers Center property, except when actively eating or drinking in their seats. I probably wouldn't have mine on much because I'm eating and drinking all the time. But seriously, though, it's a great thing that they're doing there. And I saw that as people were coming into the stadium, the fan hosts that greeted them were also giving them the gift of a mask with the word home, and a Blue Jay emblem on there. I thought that was really cool. So, there's a few other things they're doing as well, but they're trying to make sure that they're keeping it as safe for the fans and the players as much as possible. And I won't even tell you what they're doing about the restrooms. You can figure that out yourself. But that's some of the things they're taking as far as COVID. There's also, as far as the players themselves, they've got certain policies in place. And like you said earlier, because of bringing other sports in, weeks before this, with the Stanley Cup, et cetera, they have an idea of what they want to do to protect folks. So there's a lot of good moves being made at the Rogers Center to protect everybody.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, it's like the Stanley Cup playoffs were really like the catalyst for this happening, because they showed you can get it done safely, because they did it first with Vegas going to Montreal. They did that safely, where they just basically put them in another so-called bubble. They just put everybody in a hotel for that series until they went back and forth. So they did that for both the conference final and Stanley Cup final. And then I guess that led baseball to think, if they can do it, why can't we do it? And here we go. We got Blue Jays baseball back in Toronto.
All right. Fingers crossed, man. I love it. I mean, after all this time, they come back home. And what was it? It was July 30th, an 11-game homestand.
Yeah, that's a big day. The first game back in Toronto, and they also got Jose Berrios earlier that day.
Wow. Not only are you moving to a new team, you're moving to a new country to play ball. So that had to be exciting. Why don't you give us kind of a rundown of that game one, and what happened, who played, and give us the results.
Yeah, they played in front of a sellout, or at least as much of a sellout as they can, at 13,446 fans. And Blue Jays fans didn't have to wait long to see their team get on the board, as Teoscar Hernandez hit a 441-foot bomb, where if they were playing in Dunedin, it would have landed in an empty schoolyard, and in Buffalo, possibly on a highway or in a ditch. So he hit a home run there. George Springer, he hit a double to left center, which was an RBI. Guerrero hit a single to make it 3-0. Then Semien had hit into a double play, but that brought in a run as well. Bo Bichette, he hit a homer. It was a 2-run homer, got the crowd going, and that pretty much put the game out of reach, as the Blue Jays got a 6-4 win. And the final out came when Santiago Espinal caught the ball barehanded over his shoulder, and the guy that was pitching that game in the ninth to close it out was Jordan Romano, who is from the Toronto area.
Oh, wow. I love it, man. This is picture book. I mean, and you talking about the whole idea of Espinal being able to catch that ball. Would you say backhanded?
Yeah, barehanded over the shoulder too.
I love it. I mean, those are moments that will be captured in history. The return of the Blue Jays to Toronto, and to wrap it up with pitching, like you were saying, the final pitcher was Jordan Romano, the native up there, and that's just exciting.
Yeah, and could you imagine the emotions he was dealing with? He's back in his home country, and I mean, who knows how often he would have been able to visit there with the lockdowns and all these rules.
Right. And
pitching in front of his family in the first game back, I mean, that had to be special for him.
I'm so glad that the Blue Jays had that 11-game stand that they did. Is there anything else you want to say about that first game, Brandon?
No, I think we got it all covered up.
Well, it is interesting looking at, because they did have 11 games, and if you're going to come back home, come back strong, and that's what they did. And if we kind of take a look at who those games were, I mean, some of the different, let's see, who all did we? We started out. They started out playing Kansas. Simple enough. Then who else came after that? They had, was it Cleveland? And then the Red Sox. So that was quite a bit. And let's see, what were the results? With so out of the 11 games, the Blue Jays won 9. Wow, nice trending record.
It is.
I was going to ask you about Berrios. What Berrios? So he's brand new, and when he comes here for that 11-game homestand, did you say he got to pitch more than once? What happened?
Yes, he pitched twice. He pitched on, I believe this is the third game against the Royals. He went 6 innings, got the win, gave up 5 hits, no earned runs, and 7 strikeouts. And then he pitched in the game against Boston, where he went 6 innings again, only gave up 1 earned run, with 6 strikeouts. So, unless I said it wrong, but he had no earned runs against Kansas City. I believe I said 1. So he had no earned runs against Kansas City and only 1 earned run against Boston. So that's a pretty good start for being with a new team in a new country.
Yeah, kudos to him and kudos to them for selecting him, during the trade deadline. But if we look across that team, look what we got. I mean, you got George Springer, you got Vlad Jr., Marcus Semien, Bo Bichette, Teoscar Hernandez, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Kirk, Alejandro Kirk, Randall Grichuk, of course, Santiago Espinal, as far as people on the field. And there's probably some people I'm forgetting. And then pitching, Ryu, Alek Manoah, and Berrios. Who's Rob? Is Robbie Ray with them? I can't remember.
Yeah, Robbie Ray's with them.
Robbie Ray was
Mr. Tight Pants himself.
Yeah, when they were playing, meaning the Rays are playing the Blue Jays, he's one that always kind of scares me, and But it's interesting to see how they played. I enjoyed. Was it the game they played last Friday, and they were playing the Red Sox. Friday, August 6th, and man, that 5th inning just went stupid crazy. At this point in the 4th inning, the Red Sox at the top had scored 1, and the bottom of the 4th, Blue Jays nothing. Top of the 5th, Red Sox score another run. And also, it brought in Nate Eovaldi was pitching. And over 9 runs was scored in the bottom of the 5th by the Blue Jays. And one of the things that happened was when Eovaldi was replaced by Robles for pitching, was one of the Blue Jays was hit by a pitch. And you know how that goes. I mean, when you've come up and you've just had run after run after run on top of Eovaldi, you put a new pitcher in, it's not surprising to say, let's go ahead and hit one of these guys and remind them we're here. I don't know if that was the motivation for it, but Robles and the Blue Jays dugout had a little bit of chirping going back and forth. So Robles stood off the mound and took a few steps toward the dugout, and the noise from the Blue Jays dugout got a little louder. It looked like a couple of people were going to step over the rail and have a conversation with Mr. Robles, but Charlie Montoyo did a great job of kind of cooling things down. But then the team turned on the steam even that much more, and achieved 9 runs in the bottom of the 5th. It was an exciting game to watch.
Yeah, I wish I could have watched it live, but I saw what was going on Twitter. And it was exciting to watch, especially because it involves the Red Sox getting 9 runs hung on them in an inning, which made it even better. But it's always a little exciting when you can get the blood pumping and a little bit of animosity going.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I went ahead and when I did a interview with Brent Carty this past week, he had me on his show. And one of the first things I said is, I want to thank you and the Blue Jays for beating the heck out of the Red Sox this past week. Oh, gosh. Yeah, we don't mind that. So, oh, brother. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to ask you, Brandon. I mean, taking a look at the Blue Jays, what has it looked like for them? I mean, if you're going to evaluate the Toronto Blue Jays, what they've been in the past, what they've done since their, the homestand and since, can you kind of give us an idea of what those, I don't want to say 2 teams, But the teams, because they are the same team, but there's some different players. What that looked like?
Yes, and these stats come courtesy of CBS Sports, and this is basically what they look like before heading into that Friday night. The Blue Jays were 22-22 at home. We use that term loosely. And as of today, they have now moved that record to 31-24. And on the road, they were 29-26 and now 30-27 at the moment of recording after this first two games to the Angels. And going forward, it's a pretty even schedule. And, basically if you do the old saying where if you have a winning record at home and you can play around 500, maybe a little better on the road, they can be in a really good shot for that second wild card, maybe even the first.
Well, I'm watching them with very intently. The Yankees and the Red Sox, are quite often the marquee names that you hear about when you're AL East. And you can't help but acknowledge the Rays with what they've been doing lately. But the Blue Jays, I believe, have been kept, off to the side. People haven't talked much about them, but now they have to. And they should have been all along, because if you'd asked me toward the beginning of the season, who would be the final two, I would have told you the Rays and the Blue Jays and then maybe the Red Sox. I don't know if I would have the Yankees because, one, they're injury prone, and even when they're not, I think sometimes I look at them and I say they're a little lackadaisical, and that's certainly proven, I think, throughout this season. They made some changes to their lineup that's going to make a difference. We won't get too much more into those teams, but the Blue Jays have definitely made their mark and continue to drive up higher and higher. They're, I think, 7.5 games right now back from the Rays, and who knows where they're going to wind up.
Yeah, and we said it last year. I know I did, and I believe you did as well, that last year's little playoff appearance,
right?
It felt kind of like, they're getting in there, they're getting their feet wet, and then next year, now this year, felt like the year where they could really do some damage. And now, of course, it got a little bit thrown off not being able to play in your home stadium, but now doing that, you have your true home field advantage. Maybe that can propel them to a wild card and maybe on a deep run, because they're only 2.5 games out of the second wild card. And I mean, I've said it before, all you need is a chip in a chair, and I think the Blue Jays are given that chance. They could go far.
I agree. And you look at it now, see on their calendar, I think they got about 49 games left. And let's see, they got 7 or 8 series left on the road and 8 at home. What kind of a schedule do they have? Let's see, Brandon. They're facing the Angels. They've done a doubleheader with. What's funny thing when they went over across the country to play the Angels is one of the games there was a home game because of rain out in Dunedin. Yeah, funny. So they played a home game with the Angels at the Angels Stadium. I got the Mariners, and Mariners can never be sneezed at, and certainly the Rays can't. The Nats got a couple games with them. Then they got Detroit. They're going to see Detroit 6 games, once at home and away. White Sox are going to be facing them, and that's always can be nasty. Got 4 games with them, and that's going to be at home. Baltimore, they're playing 9 times. 9 games, I should say. And 3 different series, 3. And, Baltimore's Baltimore, and there's a reason they're at the bottom of the AL East. So that might be, I won't say it'd be 9 soft games, but maybe they could win 7 or more, 7 or 6 out of those. Oakland, they got 3 games. The Yankees, they play 7, 4 at home. No, 4 to the Yankees and 3 at home. What else? They faced the Rays twice, away and home, and Twins twice with 4 games each. So it's an interesting grouping. I'd say that if there was really any softness there, I guess I'd say Baltimore with the 9 games out of their remaining 49.
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy road because, I mean, you don't think of Detroit being as good, but they've been playing good ball the past few months, and I don't think they're going to be a pushover. And like you're saying, I think it's pretty much going to be Baltimore that's probably going to be the only easy going.
Yeah, Detroit, who are they, man? I never expected to see A.J. Hinch whip this team into something like they've been in the last, month or so. It's like, what? Who are these guys? Jeez, they've been making a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, at first I thought they were just beating up on the Rangers, but, now they're starting to beat a little bit more competitive teams, and maybe with the combination of bringing up the younger, higher prospect guys and with A.J. Hinch coaching and managing, that probably combined has helped them believe a little bit more than what they really are.
Let's see. Then our good friends, the Blue Jays, have 8 more series at home, and that's 26 remaining games. And, one of the fun things, though, I've enjoyed about watching them come back is that home run jacket. Have you seen that?
I have.
I mean, you think of what I should say, I guess, the haberdashery, the courtier, whatever, of the clothing of baseball. And there's been some interesting uniforms, but nothing like that jacket. I mean, we'll give you details on the jacket, but I was thinking, okay, Augusta has a jacket, so I guess why shouldn't the Blue Jays? And then you got, what are some other ones, Brandon? What other?
You have, let's see, I believe it's Boston. They have like the home run wheelchair. There's that. I think somebody has a WWE belt. Is it the Rays?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
They've always gestured like they have one. The Padres have that bit of swag they hang around their neck. This big giant with a rotating something on the swag, and the Phillies have a little hat. I've seen Bryce Harper wears a few times. So when you come out, there's always a good ritual a lot of teams have when you come back after hitting a home run. And now the Blue Jays have this jacket. Evidently, it's a jacket that's, the idea is not new. What it says is something to the effect, it celebrates the different people that are on the team, I should say, their homeland. So you got everything from China, Venezuela, etc. on the back of this jacket. And it talks about all these neighbors, all these people coming and living together. I apologize, I don't have the exact phrase in front of me, but that's the sense of it. And it had been something they had on some T-shirts, but what they decided to do was make this nice jacket, and that has those names of everybody in the back there as far as with their countries, and they put this home run jacket on a player as they exit the field from hitting a home run, and it's a nice celebration. I think it's probably a little less dangerous than being run around inside of a small grocery cart in a dugout.
When I first saw it, it reminded me of college football, how a bunch of those programs have like a turnover chain or the spiked shoulder pads. That's what it made me think of at first, but it's cool to see everybody in baseball, sort of adopt it and put their own spin on it.
Spiked shoulder pads? Oh,
yeah.
Wow. What was that for?
That was Georgia's version. Every time they get a turnover, they give it to the defender that had the turnover. Or Oregon State, they have a turnover chainsaw.
A turnover chainsaw. I don't know what to expect anymore. That's crazy. I'm not going to ask if it's live and running in the crowd, but that's...
No, they give it to a player and they let him rev it.
Oh, brother. Looking at a few other things as far as the AL East, I want to see where these Blue Jays wind up. I've been excited about this team for a while. One, Charlie Montoyo, I have a lot of faith in him. He's also a former Ray coach, and seeing what he's going to do. I've been excited about a lot of the young players they have on the team. And, Vladdy Jr. just stands out there like nobody's business. He's probably leading home runs right now. Today, I don't know if it's him or Ohtani, but, he's right up there, and there's a reason for that. So it's exciting times for Toronto, and I can't wait to see how they continue on with the rest of this season.
Yeah, I can't be. And if you want to close it out, we have some quotes from players we can read and maybe see how it's impacting them. Maybe give fans some excitement going forward, even more than what their record shows.
Please do share.
Well, of course, we had Montoyo. He called that the first game back, quote, "my best day in baseball. I kind of look down every once in a while because otherwise you would have seen tears. I was holding tears. That's how much I care about Toronto and this nation, about winning and coming back after 670 days. It was just an awesome day and a great win. I'm never going to forget it." Then we had Bo Bichette. I was looking at Vladdy, looking at Teo. Everybody was looking at each other like, man, I've got the chills. I'm holding back tears. It's hard to explain the feeling. We've been trying to pretend like we had a home. It's difficult to do for 2 years. And then Ross Stripling, who he was a starter for that game, he went 5 1/3, said that was such a cool experience. I was pretty nervous going into it because I was starting to get an idea of what it meant and what it would feel like. I'm just so glad that the opportunity fell on me and it was my turn in the rotation, and that will be something that I talk about forever. And then lastly, from George Springer, it's a plain and simple statement, but to the point. There's no place like home. This is awesome. I don't have any other words.
Wow. And what else can be said? And, for a new Blue Jay to boot, and man, they're glad to go ahead and find themselves once again up there at Rogers Center. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go up there and watch a game.
Yeah, I do. And those quotes came from Keegan Matheson, and I have a closing statement from him that I think probably would sum it up best. Is a decade from now, this one will show in the game logs as a win over an uncompetitive Royals team in late July, something that's rarely worth a second thought. Everything that led up to the moment is what gave it some magic, though, and the Blue Jays hope it's the beginning of something, not just the end of a long, homesick chapter.
Wow.
It hits you in the feels.
Yeah. It's a great time for them. And, in talking about a team that feels blessed, I'm sure they do right now with the opportunity to not just play for Toronto and their country, but to be there and execute that and be, I don't think any more else needs to be said. Any other nuggets or news we need to address, sir?
Lastly, George Springer, he was awarded the AL Player of the Week twice in a row. In this past week, he's hit .364 with 3 doubles, a triple, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, and 9 runs. So,
wow.
Hello, Toronto, for him.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, the excitement, the growth, Springer just being awarded twice the AL East Player of the Week, and it's good things for the Blue Jays. Only 7.5 games back in the AL East. Look out everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, crazy things have happened. It's never out of question. I mean, the Rays came back from, 8.5 back in September one time? You never say never. And if not, all you need is a chip and a chair. You just got to get into the wild card.
That's it, boys and girls. Well, I want to thank you, Brandon, once again, from @SportsBlitzPod on Twitter. And also I want to thank Brent Carty from The Carty Show, who spent a little time with us the other day and talking about the Rays and the Jays. But especially I want to thank all of you all for listening here at Baseball Biz with myself, Mark Corbett, who you can find at The Baseball Biz. And you can find Brandon and I across all podcast directories looking for Baseball Biz, all one word. And we look forward to talking with you guys again real soon. Special thanks to XTakeRUX for the music, Rocking Forward. Also, thanks to Brent Carty of The Carty Show, where you can also find him on all podcast directories.